Today I'm talking to Warren Gibson from Trinity Hill in Hawke's Bay. Well, nice to see you, Warren, and congratulations on getting in a place in the top wineries list for 2022. That's well done.
Yeah, cheers, Bob. It's always pleased to get in the top group of your selection. So very pleased. Thank you.
You've had a new ownership change quite recently. Well, no, probably a year ago now, is it?
Yeah, so about February, just as we started vintage last year, February 2021. Change of ownership back into, there's more than one owner, but back into New Zealand ownership after we had a brief period with some US private equity sort of ownership. So we're very pleased for a number of different reasons, Bob, and very lucky to have owners that are passionate and wanting to take Trinity Hill to another level, and we feel both safe and excited.
You work with grapes grown in the Gimlet gravels, but you also take grapes from Bridge Par, I understand, Bridge Par Triangle. How would you describe the difference between the Gimlet fruit and the Bridge Par, just briefly?
Yeah, so we don't actually own any vineyards in the Bridge Par area. We've got 42 hectares on the gravels, but stylistically, and it's a reasonably big generalisation, but basically it's a different era of the river path. So the Bridge Par Triangle has sort of 10,000 years of whatever's happened in that time on top of gravel where the river had gone, whereas the Gimlet gravels is really the top part of that soil is only 150 years old, where the river changed course in 1867. So I think the climates are not obviously that different. They're quite close to each other, but the phenology of the grapes are a little earlier, and that soil in the Bridge Par area, whilst we'd argue we've made some great Chardonnay from the gravels, it's probably more suited to Chardonnay and perhaps to a more aromatic style of Syrah and also Merlot with that sort of slightly more fertile soil, whereas the gravels I think is more suited to, in general, red and the Cabernet family and Syrah, but where there is a bit more silt, definitely Chardonnay as well.
And your flagship Homage Syrah, I think that's the flagship wine, is when you make it, it's got a great history as a cellaring wine, and I'm sure most of the Syrah that you've sold over the years would be still sitting in cellars rather than having been enjoyed. But do you actually, when you're making a wine, do you actually consider longevity? Do you do anything to build in longevity, or is it just the way it comes out?
I think we're lucky with the fruit from the gravels that we've got that inherent structure and power that the wines will age regardless of probably what we do. That's not understating what we do in the winery. And I think I talked to you very recently about this. We actually, over time, our first vintage was 2002. And looking back at those vintages, we probably made the wines a bit retrospectively in terms of plunging, more than we'd ever do now, and pumping over and extracting as much as we could. But the gravels actually give us colour and tannin. And as we've learnt, as everything's got older, including the vines and us and our maturity, we have learnt that we really have to be hands-off and do as little as we can at the fermentation time. So very, very gentle handling. So never a problem getting colour and structure. In some cases, it's a problem getting too much. So in fact, those 20 years of making Homage, we've actually really phased back our winemaking in terms of extraction, which we want people to drink the wines both young and be enjoyable, but obviously cellar worthy. And I'm not convinced that wines have to have massive tannins or structure to be age worthy. I think some of the most beautiful wines in the world drink beautifully well, young as well as age. Comes down to probably your preference with style and whether you like bottle age or not.
And the 2002 is still drinking well, isn't it?
Yeah, the 2002. It's a long time ago, but it was probably, in terms of the vintage, probably one of the best vintages in the last 20, well, in 20 years. So we didn't have the ammunition in terms of we had 2 hectares of Syrah to make homage back then, and now we have 18 to 20 hectares. So, and with vine age, we're much more likely to be able to make the wine every year. Back in the early days, we were sort of protecting this new product for our brand, and so there were a number of years between 2002 and 2013 where we didn't make the wine, more like a vintage champagne in that regard. But now we'd like to be making this wine every year, and even in the more challenging years, which were 2017 and to a certain extent 2022 as well.
And you've got cuttings, the homage from Jabelet. Do you actually consider Rhone styles or winemaking methods when you with homage or?
Yeah, so the Jabelet story is probably a bit long to go in depth, but yes, we our original owners had an association with the Jabelet family in the Northern Rhone, and we did get gifted some cuttings from both Hermitage and Condrieu, and also what we call the Busby or Mass Selection clone from Australia, which are a very important clone for New Zealand. And I think if we didn't have that clone, fortunately sort of retrieved by Dr. Alan Limmer from Stonecroft 30 years ago, we may not see anything like the quality of Syrah we have, or even the plantings in New Zealand. And yes, again, with the winemaking, we a bit like that sort of easing off of the extraction. We're also trying to bring in some complexities, both from different vine ages and clones, and things like whole bunch fermentation, which are more like sort of Pinot Noir, classical Pinot Noir winemaking. So a good component of the homage would be, in most years, probably more so in the warmer years, either like traditionally foot stomped as 100% whole clusters, or put into a tank without any destemming. So, and that really comes down to, there's no formula. It just comes with the individual season and our intuition as to what works, and sometimes just straight out logistics, to be honest.
Do you make? I'm often sort of intrigued. Do you make wines that you like and styles that you applaud, or do you make wines that your customers like, or perhaps it's the same thing?
Yeah, it's a good question, and probably one I haven't thought enough about over time. But I probably slightly dogmatically think that, if I like the wine, a lot of other people will as well. And we do have to realise that people, it is a drink. It's not a look or a smell. But as winemakers, we tend to maybe spend a lot of time with the appearance of the wine and with the smell of the wine, which does give you a great indication of quality. But in reality, a lot of people that we're selling wine to are much more interested in texture and flavour, or their perceived flavour. So I think, again, as I get older and consider all of these things and get reminded of them, we are focusing a lot more on just how that wine feels in the mouth, and our Hawke's Bay range, which is sort of a $20-$25 range, we're more likely to be slightly more consumer driven. Whereas when we get into our homages and our single vineyards and our premium Gimlet Gravels wines, we probably feel like we've created a style which we don't want to wander too far from, and we've got a loyal support that understands, that is that, say, Trinity Hill Gimlet Gravels Chardonnay, whilst there'll be changes between vintages, that is the style that our customer likes, and generally it's probably been initially driven by us as winemakers, and then if we don't have success or we don't like the style, we will move our winemaking or viticulture to perhaps change the appearance and the flavor profile of the wine. So it's a complicated thing, and then the season obviously comes into that as well. So it's all very well thinking we can dial up X, Y, and Z, but sometimes Mother Nature doesn't completely allow you to do that.
Thanks very much. That's a good explanation, Warren. I appreciate it. And I better wrap things up now. But I'd just like to say once again, well done. Congratulations on getting in the top wineries list. And perhaps we'll see you in Auckland in October when we have the top winery celebration.
Absolutely. I'm sure we're going to be there. So great. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.